What's wrong?
Nothing.
Okay.
You are not muted. There we go. Now you are
You can hear me.
That's right. You're not muted in the best way possible. This is the Sports Porch Philadelphia. Welcome to the show.
Welcome, one and all.
We are live right now all over the world on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on X, and also the new YouTube channel.
That's
the
right.
Sports Porch Philadelphia.
We are YouTubers, professional YouTubers.
That's exact. Well, I'm not sure I would say professional yet.
I meant that in a positive way.
I understand that completely. So thanks for being here, guys. And we do drop the podcast right after the show. You can get the podcast on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you get your
frickin' podcast.
That's right. So thanks for being here, guys. Drop a comment if you're listening live to the show right now. And how about that Super Bowl?
Yeah, weird Super Bowl. 3/4 of hot garbage. And 2 quarters of excellence.
Yeah,
it really was.
Yeah,
it was like at the end, you're like, it's a great game, but don't forget, like the first 3 quarters were so horrible.
Yeah, they weren't good.
They were boring.
They were boring.
So boring.
Yeah, if you took the over on this game, I don't know. I mean, I don't remember what the over under was, but it wasn't.
Well, actually, you know what happened? They got the over because of the overtime.
Right, that's exactly
by like a half a point or something. Yeah. So yeah, and hey, nobody could figure out the overtime rules.
I didn't even realize. Yeah. Well, what we know now is each team gets a possession, and then it becomes sudden death.
Right.
And that's it.
Right.
How do you feel about that? Do you like that?
I do actually like it. Just because I think. I'm trying to think back to remember when it was the other game that went into overtime was Falcons Patriots,
right? Where
the Patriots win the toss, they take the ball, they go down, they score a touchdown, just like regular season, game's over. I felt like if the Falcons were my hometown team playing in the Super Bowl, I'd want a shot at it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like a shot to match.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, I do. I wonder if they'll do that for the regular season.
I don't know. It's interesting, but I'm sure the 49ers are already whining and trying to figure out a way to change the rule for next year because, of course, that's why they lost.
Yes, so we're gonna get to that later. But if you follow the Sports Porch Philadelphia, we do things in pages. So we're gonna flip the page over to page 1, and of course, in Philadelphia right now, since football season is over, it is Philadelphia 76ers season time.
It is.
Of course, they've been playing for a little while. So
it's been a brutal stretch without Sir Joel Embiid.
Yes. So talk to me about the trade deadline. Give us a report card because they did make some moves. But not the move that you wanted them to make.
They didn't make the move that I wanted them to make. I wanted DeJounte Murray from Atlanta.
Right.
He was held out the night before, so there was potential that he was going to be traded. But
they were getting all like SpongeBob.
I was excited, but they decided to hold on to him.
Right.
I'm going to give the Sixers a B on the trade deadline.
Yeah.
Now here's the thing: there really weren't any major players moved at the trade deadline, and because of that, you can make the case that Buddy Hield, who the Sixers got from the Indiana Pacers, was the best player moved at the trade deadline.
Right.
So for those of you who don't know, Buddy Hield is he's a sharpshooter. He's a 3-point shooter. I wasn't aware that since Buddy Hield has been in the league, only Steph Curry has made more 3-pointers than Buddy Hield.
Yeah, I was reading about how he doesn't score a lot, but he's got a great 3-point shooting percentage.
Yeah, so and in both games that he's played for the Sixers, he's gone over 20 points.
Right.
I think this is one you might want to just get off of here, Chris.
What are we talking about?
I don't know. A comment.
I didn't even see that. I apologize.
Can't read it. Could be completely nice.
Sorry about that, folks.
But so Buddy Hield, I like. They also brought in a guy, Campaign. who also can shoot some threes. He's a decent kind of role player kind of guy. Actually, some of the Sixers moves, people were just kind of like, why were they doing that? Like they got rid of Pat Beverly and gave him to the Bucks. And look, I mean, Pat Bev is, he's a leader type player. He's a veteran type player. You kind of like having him on the team. He kind of fires people up,
Right.
gives you a spark off the bench. But at the same time, in the NBA, look, his best days are behind him. I was looking, he's shooting 32% from 3-point range. And so they basically shipped him out and in for Campaign, who's, shooting 39% from 3-point range.
Okay, a little better.
That's actually, like, in NBA terms, that's like a lot better.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So, so I kind of get that, but it was still a little weird giving them to the Bucks, who you could potentially face in the playoffs. And then the other one that was a little weird was that they traded Jaden Springer to the Celtics of all teams.
Yes, I saw. I saw a little bit about that. They were questioning the logic behind that.
Now, look, he's a former first round pick, but in basketball, if you're not picked like in the top 10, most of the time that means like you're a developmental project, and you're going to play in like the G League, and then you're going to come up, and so he's played some in the NBA, and he's actually he's an excellent defensive player,
right?
But he can't shoot. Like his 3-point percentage is 22%. This year.
Yeah.
Right. So, and I listened to Daryl Morey, the GM, give his press conference on, why he made the deal. And he said, the reality is that, we got a 2nd round pick for him, which is a higher 2nd round pick because it belongs to another team that's not doing very well.
Right.
And he believes that, what that 2nd round pick can do combined with other assets in a trade next year is going to be more valuable to the Sixers in terms of winning now versus waiting for his development. So, okay. I mean, he's like, hey, look, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but that's just the way I'm gauging it. Right. So, like the bottom line is they're around these people all the time. Maybe he's got a pretty good idea. Like, I don't think he's going to get any better. Versus us who, we might see a highlight or two and think like, oh, maybe they shouldn't give up on this guy.
Right.
You know what I mean? Now, meanwhile, what was really interesting was, sometimes, they got these guys who are hanging around who, they're just basically blocked. Like it's pretty hard to make it in the NBA. I mean, half the time, it's a starting 5 and then maybe 3 or 4 guys come off the bench, right? It's hard to get time. So the Sixers actually undrafted, brought in a guy, Ricky Council IV. And I don't know about 1, 2, or 3, but Ricky Council IV can play some ball.
Right.
He was out of Wichita State, and then he went to Arkansas. And I'll tell you what, like this guy looks like he's a baller. He came in now that Springer's out. He comes in, he's like 6'6". He had 19 points, 10 rebounds, getting critical buckets, for a Sixers win the other night. And, he could be a hidden gem. So, just one game, but hidden gem possibility. So, maybe what they're doing when they move a Springer, they move a Pat Bev, is they open up some space for some other guys to play.
Right.
You know? So here's the thing that really the end result here is, did they get a little bit better? I think they did get a little bit beher.
Yeah, I was kind of waiting for the grade to come out here.
Yeah, I mean, I'd give them a B. Look, it's not like they went out and got a, all-star caliber player, but they improved the team. And it really all comes down to Embiid and how he progresses with his injury. If he comes back this year, then hey, they've got just as good a chance as anybody in the East. I mean, you still have to like the Celtics as the top team. The Bucks is kind of number 2. Now the Sixers have slid because of all the injuries. But now hopefully with the new additions and some of our guys coming back. Now keep in mind, it's not just Joel Embiid that's out. Maxey was out for a couple games. You had Robert Covington was out. Anthony Melton is out. So they got a lot of people out. So, you got to figure if they can kind of play 500 ball, stay somewhere between the 4 and the 6 seed, let's say something like that. There's nothing saying that they can't make a run. They got a really good coach. And I'd be interested to see what happens. And here's the other side of it. The other side of it is also what they did was they moved a lot of cap space,
right?
So that come the off season, they'll have the ability to bring in a superstar player. It'll probably be mean Tobias Harris going and a star player, max player coming in. Now there's already been rumors about Paul George,
right?
So I don't know. I don't know. I mean, look, the guy's really darn good, but he is like 35, I think.
Yeah.
But that's one name that's been bandied out there. I think what it would be, somebody coming by way of a trade in the off season. So, right now I'd say Sixers improve themselves some, and we'll see if the big man can come back. And if he can, then, hopefully we have a few playoff series to watch.
Yeah. And Maury was talking the other day about how he's hoping Joel can be back for a playoff run.
Right.
So that tells me that this is going to be on the longer end of the recovery period they were talking about.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely going to be, they're saying between 4 and 8 weeks, but I would say think more in the 6 to 8 range.
Yeah. Yeah. They have to hold on. I mean, they're now 9.5 games out there in third place.
Right.
The Knicks have overtaken them. Now the nice thing is that Brooklyn and Toronto are just way back there, but they're dealing with that injury bug right now.
Yeah.
And yeah. I don't know. They do just this. Yeah. This one really is. Now we're at the point where this is kind of like, hold on and just make it to the playoffs.
Right. Right. Because that's what it is. I mean, obviously some of it's going to have to do with, if the Sixers are finding themselves in like 10th place or something, they might just say, all right, sit out the rest of the year, JoJo.
Right.
Yeah. Or, if for some reason, maybe the Sixers kind of get hot with some of the new guys and some of the other players coming back, maybe they win some games, maybe they're kind of pushing the 4 seed or, something like that. Then maybe Embiid comes back in 6 weeks and it's like, let's go. You know what I mean? So it's still to be determined. They're basically not committing it. They're not committing to him either being back or not, simply because I think that they just want to wait and see how, the wins play out.
Yeah. Sports is funny, man. You think you got everything lined up and then an injury happens and it changes the trajectory of the entire season.
Yeah.
So that's where we are. All right. I want to remind everybody, you can follow us on the new YouTube channel, the Sports Porch Philadelphia. Just find it on YouTube. Sports Porch. I think I don't even know what I called it. I think it's at the Philadelphia Sports Porch.
There you go.
And of course, follow the Sports Porch Philadelphia. You can subscribe to the podcast. Please leave us a review on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you get your frickin' podcasts. Page 2, Schwaber. Page 2. We will get to football because.
By the way, can you watch us now on YouTube without ads? Because I don't know if we've really broken through yet.
I don't think we have. No, okay. I think there's no ads on there.
Okay, no ads. No ads like for now.
For now.
Get ready. A year from now, it's going to be like, you're going to be like, God damn, the ads.
Yeah. Well, no, that's just like back to regular life.
Right.
Page 2, the Flyers. They're blazing hot out of the break. So have they already put the Carter Hart controversy behind them?
I think they have.
Really?
I think they have. Huh. I think what that did was it just sort of brought everybody down. And
really?
Yeah. I mean, it's like, here's the thing. I mean, Carter Hart is, look, he's supposed to be a franchise goaltender. I don't know that he really lived up to that hype as of yet, although I think he had potential to get there.
Right.
But he's a good, solid player, right? Now our backup, Sam Urson, has virtually the same type statistics as him,
Right.
And he's a young guy too, so he's just finding his way. But I think that it's sort of like some air let out of the bag, when you find out that, like for example, like Cam York, a defenseman on the Flyers, Carter Hart's his roommate, it's his best friend. Now all of a sudden, you don't get to see your best friend anymore because he's on trial for
because he's
horrendous acts.
He could be going to jail,
right? You know what I mean? Yeah, so I think it really just kind of hit the Flyers kind of all at once. But like I was saying before last week, I was saying I really felt like the break came at exactly the right time.
Yeah,
got everybody to sort of clear their head, get away from hockey for a little bit, come back kind of recharged, and they came back out of the break and they've won 3 in a row.
I know, 3 in a row, and they actually play tonight. You got a 2 for going tonight. You got the Sixers playing the Cavs, and you got who are these guys playing? Phoenix. So
and 2 of the wins were against very good teams, Florida and Winnipeg. So they've come out of the gates really strong here, and I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say if they're going to be able to do enough to get into the playoffs, but here we are. There's about 30 games left, and they are in a pretty solid position in the playoffs right now.
62 points. Yep. Yeah. Islanders are behind them at 56 points. And what I find amazing is how far the Penguins, the cross-state rival, has fallen. But it looks like Philly, they kind of shook that off. But again, it's a long season. Injuries could play a part.
Yeah, it's long. I mean, injuries do play a part, and let's face it. I mean, look, the same thing could happen that happened right before the break. I mean, Flyers could win 5 in a row and then lose 5 in a row. I mean, it's a young team that's still trying to figure out how to win. Yeah. So, remains to be seen whether they can muster up enough to make the playoffs. I think there was some statistic where, and that's a Penguins fan there.
Yeah. Steve says you were right. The Flyers are for real.
High praise for the Flyers. Although to be honest, I haven't really said that they're for real. I just think that I think that they're much improved. Yeah. Which I think is really good. Yeah. But I think
Steve is saying they're
right. Yeah.
Actually, last week, I think what he had mentioned is we'll see how they come out of the break.
Right.
And there you have it.
Right. Yeah, well, that is true. I mean, had they come out of the break like they went into the break, then it would have been over.
Yeah, probably.
But Steve says they're buying into torts, and that's everything.
Yep.
And it's true. It's true. Actually, it was kind of an interesting little tidbit. So in the second game against Winnipeg, which I believe they won 3-2.
I think 4-1.
Was it 4? Oh,
yeah, they beat the Kraken 3-2.
Oh, the Kraken 3-2. Okay,
it was. They came out Florida. They beat the Panthers 2-1, Jets 4-1, Kraken 3-2.
Right, and so and I believe they had a 2-0 lead on the Kraken, and then the Kraken tied it up 2-2. And Torts was very unhappy with the way they played in the second period.
Right.
And apparently he had been pretty, PO'd at Sean Couturier because Couturier, I guess, maybe made some sort of lazy play, and which led in the second tying goal.
Right.
And so I guess he was giving Couturier an earful. And so basically then what happens is Couturier gets a tip-in goal to win the game. And after he scores the goal, he kind of gave like one of those almost kind of like a fist pump and kind of like yeah, I told you so, kind of like F you kind of thing. And they interviewed Torts after the game, and Torts was like, do you think that they said, like, some reporter said, do you think that was kind of like towards you what Couturier did? And he's like, yeah. He's like, and I think that's great. He's like, that's exactly what I want to see.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, look, I mean, he's like, I tell our star players, like, we're not good enough for you guys to be average. We need you to be really, really good. And if you're really, really good, we can win some games. So, hey, if he's saying F me, then that's great, because he can say F me all the time if he keeps scoring goals.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah.
You know, so I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool. But, you know, interesting, one other point with the Flyers that I kind of looked at was I was trying to look at, and this is good, since we got Steve listening in, I thought he might find this interesting. So I was trying to think about, okay, so like how did the Flyers get here? You know, like what's contributing to their success? And the answer to that is they have 4 lines. That's what it comes down to. So like I looked, I took the last line, the last lines of the Penguins and the last lines of the Flyers.
Right.
And I mean, look, it's very inexact science.
Yeah.
All I looked at was goals, you know, scoring goals.
Yeah.
Right.
You simplified it.
I simplified it. So of course we know that the Penguins' first line is going to be better than the Flyers' first line.
Well, I mean,
because you got
kind of,
because you got Crosby, you got Gensel on the same line.
Yeah.
You know, and Russ. So it was something like the Penguins, and granted, the Flyers have played like, you know, 4 or 5 more games too. But it was kind of close, but it was like I think it was something like the Penguins had 69 goals from their first line.
Right.
And the Flyers had like 61, something like that. But then line 2, 3, and 4 of the Flyers was all, you know, pretty significantly better than the line 2, 3, and 4 of the Penguins.
Yeah. Now,
I mean,
Steve is saying they're even on all 4 lines.
No, I think what he's saying is that the Flyers are even on all 4 lines. Gotcha, like they can all score equally as well. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, it was like, you know, the second line was actually like, you know, 5 or 6 goals better. The you know, the third line was like another 5 or 6 goals better, and the fourth line was like might have been like 10 goals better or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what they've sort of done is they've got a pretty even spread of talent throughout. You know, and if you think about it, he says the Flyers are more aggressive on the puck. Yeah, and that's a Torch style.
Right.
So, you know, but now, you know, the other interesting thing at play with the Flyers is that, you know, you also sort of have to balance. Shorties can change the game, and the Flyers will lead the league in the shorthanded goals.
I feel like you and Steve are just doing the show here.
Steve, why don't you just come into the studio? So, you know, but the interesting thing with the Flyers, though, is that, you know, you really still got to think about, you know, do you make deals at the trade deadline, you know, versus making the playoffs? Because here's the thing, you know, it's so hard to say because, you know, like here's the thing, you know, hockey is the one sport, and I would say the one and only sport where if you're the 8th seed in hockey, you can win the Stanley Cup, you know, because it's all about, you know, do you get a hot goaltender? And, you know, is everybody like, you know, playing the system perfectly? And 8 seeds win. You know, it's happened numerous times.
Right.
You know, so that's one in the box of don't make trades, make the playoffs.
Yeah.
However,
I say if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Well, but here's the thing. So like, for example, like, you know, you've got Scott Loughton, right?
Right.
He's, you know, he's not old, but I'm going to say he's probably like 30 or something. Right. And he's on a good team. He's a good 3rd or 4th line center, you know, and he's scrappy. And he could get you a 1st round pick because the pickings are very slim this year at the trade deadline.
Right. Maybe
in another year, 2nd or 3rd, but this year he could actually maybe get you a 1st round pick. So the question is, do you give something up like that, which could really improve your team for years to come down the line, or not? It's kind of hard to say. Like, they got another guy, like a really good defenseman, Sean Walker. Do you trade him? Because, I mean, hey, look, it's like they got a pretty good young defenseman, Igor Zamula, and he doesn't get a lot of playing time right now just because it's a numbers game. So do you let Sean Walker go, to give him to a contending team if that gets you like a second round pick in return, or like, maybe it gets you like, you can also do deals where you get, like, think about the Claude Giroux deal, right? I don't know if there was a first round pick in that deal. There might have been, but I also know Owen Tippett was part of that deal.
Right.
And he was like the number one prospect in their system.
Right.
So like, do you get a guy who could be like a top 6 forward type, for one of these guys at the deadline, somebody who's just playing, in minor league hockey for another team. But ultimately, that's why they paid the big money to Danny Briere.
Yeah. That's why, and that's how you figure it out.
And I will leave it in his hands.
And I think he's thankful for
I don't think Danny Briere has any interest at all in what I think.
Well, I mean, don't sell yourself too short.
Except that he's just pleased that I'm a fan.
So you can check us out on our new YouTube channel, the Philadelphia Sports Porch. Really easy to find. That's where the live videos will be. The Grant Schwabini will be doing some preaching as well, and some predicting coming up soon, when he will do Phillies reports and Sixers reports and all of that. I'm hoping we're going to see one or two of those soon.
We will. Okay. I've been a little ill lately.
Oh,
but
why are you here then?
Well, not ill in the way that I could infect you.
Oh, okay.
Dental issues.
Oh,
things of that sort.
All right. That's called getting old. So follow the Sports Porch Philadelphia on YouTube, and also you can subscribe to the podcast. We drop it right after the show on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcast. Page 3. We're gonna move right to the NFL here. The offseason begins. Thoughts on the Super Bowl. Why is that relevant? Well, it's relevant because it's the Super Bowl, and well, I mean, do you feel good for Andy Reid now, Mark? I mean, you were such a big Andy Reid fan.
I've always felt good for Andy Reid.
But then in the final Andy Reid days, I do remember a little bit of angst about him.
Well, no, look, here's
typical Philly response.
Well, no, look, I mean, let's just be real here, okay? The reality is that it's taken Andy Reid having one of the best quarterbacks of all time to win Super Bowls. He didn't have it. The closest he had it was Donovan McNabb, and Donovan McNabb was more a very good player, but not a great player, you know?
Right.
And, and look, even when he went to Kansas City, when he had Alex Smith, he was 1-4 in the playoffs.
Right.
He was terrible. That's sometimes what it takes. I mean, the bottom line is that the Eagles would not have won a Super Bowl if we had kept Andy Reid.
Well, I don't know. I think Andy Reid has also gotten better, and we forget that Andy Reid is the guy that made the decision to move on from Alex Smith.
Sure.
Who wasn't performing poorly.
Sure.
And said, I'm going to let this Mahomes kid that I drafted. He's but that's I hear this so much.
I think that's going.
All right, so we're looking at most Super Bowl wins.
Right.
Okay. Belichick 6, Noel 4, Reed 3, Gibbs 3, and I missed the other one.
Right.
So,
but all 3 are with Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
So basically, if you want to make the case that Andy Reid would have given the Eagles more Super Bowls, you would have to say the first part of that equation is he notices Pat Mahomes and drafts him for the Eagles.
Maybe he does.
That's a pretty big leap.
It is well, okay. This is where I disagree, because Chuck Noll won all 4 of his Super Bowls with Terry Bradshaw.
Right.
Yet he is considered one of the greatest coaches in NFL history, because he didn't just draft Terry Bradshaw and decide that he was going to be the quarterback.
Sure.
He drafted that defense. He put that team together. He willed them to victory. He brought them together. Bill Belichick, listen, he had Tom Brady, but Tom Brady was a 6th round pick. He made the decision to go with Brady, and then they were able to just rotate, players in and out, but not just on offense. It wasn't about like all you had to do was plug and play somebody.
Right.
That defense never had a single superstar.
Yeah.
And he had to put that together. He's doing the same thing with the Chiefs. Yes.
Yeah.
He got Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
Yes, he did. He made that decision. But look, if the Chiefs had the 32nd ranked defense,
sure.
I'm sorry, they're probably not winning 3 Super Bowls.
Well, right, but you can also go the other way. If they had this team with Alex Smith at quarterback, they wouldn't have won the Super Bowl.
We don't know that.
I would say we know that.
Well, I mean, I concede your point.
Yes.
But we're talking about hypotheticals. So what we have to deal with here is Andy Reid. And don't get me wrong, my history and where I come from. I was not an Andy Reid fan back in the day when he was with the Eagles for obvious reasons. But I'm looking at him now and I'm saying, listen, we can't sell this guy short. This guy played it out. Not only did he take an Eagles franchise that was floundering and turn it into a relevant franchise and manage egos like T.O. and Donovan McNabb and great defenses with Reggie White. He had Reggie White on his team for a little while, didn't he? Or did he leave before? No, he left. Anyway, he still had great defenses.
Right.
And, he brought them into, relevance. What do they do? Like 4 straight NFC championships, and one of them, they lost to New England. They lost to Brady.
Right.
And then he moves on to another team where most coaches, they don't have very good luck.
Right.
Moving on to another team.
Right.
And he takes a franchise that at the time was just falling apart.
Right.
And he brings more life into it. I think that Andy Reid could win with other quarterbacks, good quarterbacks.
Well,
I think he could.
Yeah, with really good quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Well, that's the whole point. I mean, other than like Trent Dilfer in 2000 when the Ravens won with the greatest defense ever, sorry, Pittsburgh fans, if you're out there, but that's a thing. I think Andy Reid, and they're calling it Reid's Super Bowl masterpiece.
But
I think he called a masterful game.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is like, let's not forget here.
I didn't want to let you get a word in edgewise.
No, let's not forget here that the Eagles won a Super Bowl before Andy Reid won a Super Bowl, and they did that because they let Reid go.
Well, I wouldn't say they did it because they let Reid go. They did it because they found the right coach at the right time.
Well, no, it was just I think you're misunderstanding. It's the bottom line is, yes, Andy Reid is a great coach, but still, at some point in time, the message runs stale.
That is true.
And so, he had been there for 14 years.
Yeah, it's a long time.
And then the last 2 years were losing seasons, and they bottomed out at 4-12.
Yeah.
And it was just time.
Yeah.
It was just time.
No argument there. No argument there.
So I'm happy for Andy that he's doing well. You know. And I was actually happy that the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. I was rooting for them.
Yeah, well, I mean, you called that game.
It's more now. It's actually kind of interesting because, in all honesty, most of the year, I've just been like so annoyed by the Chiefs.
Right,
like the Chiefs. The Chiefs are almost like the new Patriots with Brady and Belichick.
Yes,
it's like, anybody sneezes on Pat Mahomes, it's a 15-yard penalty.
I know.
You know what I mean?
I know.
And it didn't happen in the Super Bowl at all. But Pat Mahomes is like asking for a penalty on every play.
Well, that's what he's paid. I mean? He's paid to do that. That's part of the job.
Right. Yeah. So I think we were all having Chiefs fatigue.
I was having it a lot.
With the with the Taylor Swift edition as well.
I mean, look, the only difference, the big difference here is that Andy Reid is infinitely more likable than Bill Belichick.
Sure, yes.
And Pat Mahomes, I find it hard to like him.
Yeah, he's not likable, but he's also not unlikable.
He's not stoic like Tom Brady.
Right. He's not like a jackass like Tom Brady.
Yeah. I don't know that I'd call. Yeah. All right. I'll go there. With
I mean,
he's not a jackass.
Yeah. I mean, Tom Brady would be like yelling and trying to humiliate, his, his offensive lineman
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
missing a block. You know what I mean?
Right.
But no, I mean, so I had Chiefs fatigue, but my dislike of the 49ers is so enormous because of their disrespect of the Eagles.
Yeah, I know.
In particular, Deebo Samuel, he's the worst of the bunch.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I just wanted to really see it, get handed to them.
Yeah.
And it happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it made me happy.
What would have been better? Would you have preferred this overtime heartbreak, or like the Chiefs come out and just blow them out by 30 points?
I probably would have preferred a blowout.
Really?
Yes.
I kind of like the whole, like they could have won,
Yeah.
Like
well,
now I of course was rooting for the 49ers.
Yeah.
But,
well, here's the interesting thing, extremely similar Super Bowls, Eagles, Chiefs, 49ers, Chiefs, like I think that everybody would agree, like, top to bottom roster 2 years ago, Eagles roster better than the Chiefs. This 49ers roster better than the Chiefs. However, two very important pieces: quarterback, better Chiefs; coach, better Chiefs.
right.
Okay. And both the Eagles and the 49ers could have very easily won the game.
Yes.
And the game was determined by a 10-point comeback. And the game was actually decided both on the same exact play call as last year.
Yeah.
That simple little out pattern, where you run a rub and the guy's wide open.
Yeah.
So they're very similar games. And, look, I mean, watching this game, being the fact that I wasn't so against the Chiefs, because the only team I would probably root for them against was the 49ers. Or if the Cowboys were in there, I would have rooted for them against the Cowboys. Right. Or the Giants or the Commanders.
Okay, let's just keep raising the bar.
But the point is that I actually kind of came out of this game like appreciating greatness, appreciating watching greatness.
Yeah.
Watching Pat Mahomes do what he did. I mean, sometimes we don't really think about it, but I believe that last drive was like a 13-play drive, 8 passes, 8 for 8.
Yeah.
If you think about it, it's like, it's really hard to do that stuff. I mean, any single thing goes wrong. You fumble a snap,
the game's over.
The running back fumbles, you throw an interception, you just throw a bunch of incomplete passes and you're at 4th and 10.
Yep.
It really is hard to get that done. And I think we were all watching it, kind of thinking to ourselves, he's going to do it, isn't he?
Yeah. Well, and that we talked before the show, Patrick Mahomes has that intangible that only certain professional athletes have. Right. And the intangible is he just wants to win. That's it. Now, you could say they all want to win. That's why they're there. Not so much anymore. A lot of these professional athletes, especially football right now, with social media and all the money attached to endorsements and all of that. I mean, it's easy to say like they're just out for themselves. It's easy to say that, but they really are. That you see players go to teams where you look at that and you look at the way the team is built. And you look at where the team has been, nowhere. And by adding this particular piece, I mean, they're adding a guy that has a lot of talent, but that's not really what they need. And then you look at the contract and you're like, okay, well, it was, $100 million guaranteed. Right. To Deshaun Watson, to Cleveland. Now, of course, that's kind of a bad example because he really probably couldn't have gone anywhere but Cleveland, but they paid him. So what does he care? He doesn't. If Deshaun Watson wanted to win, first of all, he wouldn't have pulled all the antics he pulled. Right. But throwing that away for a second, he wouldn't have signed with Cleveland. He would have no, he would have taken his talent and he would have signed somewhere else that has a team that's ready to win. Right. And Mahomes has the intangible where he doesn't care what the stat line looks like. He only cares that when the final gun goes off, his team has more points than the other team, and he will do whatever it takes to get there, whether it's distributing the ball to any receiver who's open, or putting the ball in his own hands and 66 yards rushing. If he didn't pull off a couple of those rushes, that fourth down play, they don't win the game. And he doesn't care about that till it's over. And that's really what it takes.
Well, I mean, I think most of the good quarterbacks in the league are like that.
Well, the true winning quarterbacks.
Right. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
So the off season is here.
To be honest, I mean, I'm actually like rejuvenated today.
Are you?
I don't know, we talk about this much, but I love the off season.
Do you?
I do. I know you and our buddy Steve, you call it the dead period.
The dead zone.
To me, it's not the dead zone.
Yeah.
To me, I love the roster construction.
Yeah.
I love watching the combine. I love watching the film of the players and the draft. And I for whatever, look, I'm the Grand Schwalbini. You know what I mean?
Right.
For those of you who don't know, by the way, the Grand Schwalbini called the Super Bowl Chiefs 26 and the 49ers 24, and the final score was
25-22.
Yep, that's
pretty damn close.
That's your Grand Schwalbini for you.
That's right.
Now, because the bottom line is, because of the expertise level, I feel like I constantly know who's going to be a good NFL player. No, part of it's because I watch a lot of stuff and I read a lot of stuff, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't surprise me that George Karlaftis is a good player.
Right.
Right. I knew coming out of Purdue, he was somebody that the Eagles could have picked in the, mid to late first round. I knew when Reed picked him, he was going to be good.
Right.
Did
you know Brock Purdy was going to be good when they picked him?
I will admit I had not studied Brock Purdy.
Yeah, neither did I. I just used the eye test. Hey, look, just going back here to NBA action right now. I did just see. I guess the Cavaliers are on a 17-1 run here.
Oh, are they?
Yeah. So the Sixers have their work cut out for them.
Hands full tonight. Yes.
Okay. So off season is here, and obviously it's not.
Well, there is one big off season issue, though.
Okay. Well, let's get to it.
So the Eagles have granted permission for Hassan Reddick.
Yes.
To explore a trade.
Okay.
So a couple thoughts on that. Number one, don't want to lose Hassan Reddick. He is I believe it's him and TJ Watt. I think they're the only two players that have double-digit sacks in 4 straight seasons or something.
Right. Okay.
So he rolls out of bed and he gets you 10 sacks. So that's an issue.
Yeah. Why does he want to trade?
Well, it's the last year of his deal.
Yeah.
And, they had signed him to a 3-year deal. And so it's the last year of his deal and he's grossly underpaid.
Okay.
Okay.
Right.
So, and look, he was a good soldier last year.
Money. There it is.
But last year he said
he doesn't care about winning, Schwaber. He wants the paycheck.
You might be right.
Yep.
But last year, but look, at least he was a good soldier though about it. Last year he said he wanted a new deal, didn't hold out, played through the whole season, never complained.
Right.
Okay. Now there's a couple of different ways of looking at this, right? So, the first way is maybe they're going to try to do with him what they did with Slay, where Slay was granted permission to talk to other teams for a trade. Turned out Baltimore was interested in Slay, and the trade dynamics weren't sufficient to the Eagles' liking. But the Eagles essentially, more or less matched the offer that the Ravens gave them, and they kept them. So it could be sort of a, let's see what your worth is, and then we'll see if we're willing to pay that.
Right.
Okay. So it could be that. But then there's kind of another flip side to it as well, which is, I think one of the things that Howie Roseman, the GM's got to be looking at after last season is, did I make a mistake bringing back too many guys in their 30s? And the critical one was James Bradbury.
Right.
Who at the time, look, you can't fault him at the time. He was the PFF #1 rated cornerback last year, and he totally fell off a cliff.
Right.
Okay. But, and that's not to say that Hassan Reddick will, but in your 30s, at some point in time, that's when players will fall off a cliff. And so do you want to pay a guy $25 million a year, or whatever it's going to cost, right? Because he's one of the best at his position, who could fall off on a cliff, if not next year, maybe the year after.
Right.
Right. So it's a tough thing, you know, and then there's also other ways of looking at it as well. Like, so for example, you know, the defensive line, you know, edge rusher position is a premium position. So those guys really get paid, right?
Yes.
Okay. So now, you know, for example, you know, the way, you know, I'm looking at it is I could deal with, like, let's say they let Hassan Reddick go. And let's say they use their first round draft pick on an edge rusher. Okay. But they use that money that they wanted to spend, you know, on that they could have spent on Hassan Reddick to bring in like a Pro Bowl level linebacker and, you know, a Pro Bowl or a just below Pro Bowl level safety.
Right.
You know, if you can give me like 2 almost Pro Bowl level starters, you know, and then use the first round draft pick on an edge rusher, then I get it. You know what I mean? So it all really kind of depends on what the plan is.
Right.
And, you know, of course, right now we don't know what the plan is.
Yeah, we'll find out. We'll find out.
We will find out.
As the off season goes on. Okay, the Sports Porch Philadelphia can be found on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, Spotify, or anywhere you get your podcast. Please subscribe and leave us a review, and follow the Sports Porch Philadelphia on YouTube. That's where all our videos will be moving to. Last page for the night, the Phillies. Does Dombrowski have one move left?
Does the great Dombrowski have a move?
He's been all over the Major League Baseball.
Huh?
In his career.
He has.
Dombrowski. Yeah. I think he was the GM of the Orioles for a little while.
He might have been.
Yeah.
Might have been.
And Boston, right? Boston. So one more move here. They got one more move left before they start practicing down there.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. You know, the 2 big names out there, Cody Bellinger.
Yeah, we talked
and
about
the
that.
pitcher Jordan Montgomery.
Right.
There's been a little bit of rumblings that they might be moving on Jordan Montgomery a little bit.
Right.
But we'll see. You know, I don't know. I don't know if it's going to happen or not. It's going to have to be one of those things where I don't think it's going to happen because the Phillies push it. I think it's going to happen because maybe this is what the marketplace bears.
Right.
You know, like it's, you know, spring training is going to start. It's going to be 2 weeks in. All of a sudden, these players are going to be restless. They want to get into a camp, and, you know, they call the Phillies, and the Phillies have a better offer than some other team, and whammo, they're here.
Right.
You know, so hopefully there's one more move. Just, you know, look, because it would be exciting. But
right.
But outside of that, you know, I still think they have a good club, and you know, we'll just have to see what happens. Key thing this year. And they say that they're going to do this, and I really hope they do it. They're talking, you know, the last 2 years they had very slow starts.
Yes,
so
they did.
So, you know, they really don't want to be in that position again this year. So they're talking about pitching the regular starters more innings in spring training to build up the arms to be able to pitch like regular pitchers in the regular season.
I still don't understand this whole
Right.
new pitching the way they do shit now. It
Right.
drives me nuts.
It is. It's ridiculous. It's like,
Especially when you go back and look at all the old
Right.
statistics, how many innings those guys pitched.
right.
We didn't have nearly the medical establishment we have now. So you're telling me you can't get these guys up to that? I
Right.
know they pitch
Right.
10 to 20 miles an hour on average faster.
Right.
I get it, but right.
Yeah. So, but I do think that would be a good thing. You know, I mean, like, let's start the year. Look, let's start the year with Zach Wheeler and Aaron Nola pitching 7 or 8 innings if they can. Why do we have to have them pitch 5 innings the first 3 weeks of the year?
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Put him on such a low pitch count.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Well, and pitchers and catchers report, I think, next week. So, or no, this week, end of this week. Yeah.
Like 2 days.
2 days. Yeah. So we'll be firing up the Phillies season, and the Grand Schwabini. We'll be talking about that. Jump on our new YouTube page.
Happy Valentine's Day, everybody.
And happy Valentine's Day.
Get your love on.
That was absolutely horrifying.
I thought it was adorable.
All right. Well, listen, guys, thanks for watching the Sports Book Philadelphia on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on X, all over the world. And please remember to subscribe to the new YouTube channel, the Sports Porch Philadelphia. And you can also grab us. I'm going to drop the podcast right now, right after the show. The podcast, the Sports Porch Philadelphia, on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, Spotify.
Hold on. Grant Swalbini says Sixers and Flyers win tonight.
There you go. Prediction. All right. And
GG, thanks for joining.
he says that was horrifying. I'm not sure what he meant by that.
I think the love.
There it is.
I'm
Thanks,
spreading
DG.
love.
Thanks
Is
for
that
being
so
here.
wrong?
No, it's not.
It's never wrong in love.
All right. That's enough of your talking. I'm turning the music up.
All right.
We'll see you guys. And I am out.